I really think the estate planning, it's not really about death anymore. It's more about control. Death isn't the problem, it's incapacity. What happens to everything you've built up if you become incapacitated? Worst case scenario is you're in a vegetative state and nobody can access your business because you didn't plan for it properly. But if I wake up from that coma 5 years later and I see my business was shut down and sold for 30 cents to the dollar because nobody could get one of the banks to give them access to it, I'm an estate planning attorney. I'm married, we have businesses, we have all this stuff we needed to do. And I put it off for a long time because me and my wife didn't want to have the conversation. It's not a fun conversation to have. Like, okay, if I die, this is what's going to happen. But it's not about that. It's, I want you taken care of. We're going to be okay if something happens to one of us. And then the moment it was done, I slept so great. I stopped worrying about it. I knew things were going to be taken care of. His whole family showed up. They're fighting, they're arguing to get into the safety deposit box. And I sat there watching, like, this is terrible for this man. Like, he was so loved, and this is the last memory we're going to have of him.
People think like, oh, you did something wrong to me, I'm going to take you to court and sue you. Okay, maybe small claims court, you'll win a few $1,000s. Unfortunately, if you have a lot of money and you don't do the right things and spend, call it 5-10 grand to set everything up correctly in the beginning, it's going to cost you a lot more money to go through probate. It's probate. Like, how much does probate suck to go through? Actually, some of my richest clients are like my youngest clients. And a lot of them are just like, I don't want to deal with this. They're like, I like it. I'm going to get a good job with it. And then you have some folks who are like, they're under the assumption of, I read something the other day, this isn't like investment related, but like they were talking about how people get wealthy. And it was like, well, Vogel created this platform for people to join. He built a product for people to put money into so he can then make a little bit of money. I call it the Office Space effect, when they're in that car. They're like, bro, did you mess it up? They're like, we're going to take like a fraction of a penny or something like that. And they're like, did you mess it up?
And just siphon off a little bit.
Now that you're able to create like a one-stop shop, you're like, hey, I'm able to provide you advice with this. I'm able to provide you advice with that. What are you starting to notice in terms of the current landscape, in terms of it sounds like you're almost getting like an unfair advantage compared to the other people out there, especially when it comes to folks that have more sophisticated money. I mean, it's easy when you're starting out with 20 grand, but once you start having like multi-generational grandkids, kids, and a lot more money, it becomes more complicated.
Oh, it does. And it also becomes more enjoyable, at least on my end, because it's more complex. We look at kind of that changing landscape. We had the boomers, and I mess with my dad all the time. The boomers hired people to do everything for them. That's starting to go away. And you're seeing kind of Generation X, which I am, and the millennials and so forth. They're all wanting to control everything. Like I had a guy come over and ask if I wanted him to spray for bugs the other day. And it was like, absolutely not. I'll do it myself. Like, why am I going to pay you to do this? And the financial services is the same way. And so when you're looking at the needs of people, it's no longer, hey, I need to know what to invest in. There's all these different types of programs that people can get, and it's fairly inexpensive. So they're jumping into this. Where they're needing a lot of help is in that other aspects. How does it all relate together? How does it all run together? A lot of people say, oh, I'll just go buy a will online, fill out a will. And that works for some people, but I also do probate, and I see when it doesn't work as well at all. And so where the real niche for me comes in is where people do have money and they realize, hey, I don't want to screw this up because there's a lot of moving parts here. So I'm going to combine everything together and have somebody who understands it. I wouldn't call it an unfair advantage. Tax law was brutal. 4 years of law school was definitely hell, but it allows me to see things in multiple aspects where I'd never really been able to see them before law school and before I became an attorney, where how all this fits together and what happens if it doesn't work together.
It's basically like a landmine waiting to have someone step on it.
And it's nasty when it goes off too. It really can be.
Yeah. And I mean, then the person comes screaming like, oh, I was doing it like this. This was the, online says this is the way to do it. And now they're having to come back. And just because someone attempted to take the cheap approach when it comes to managing their money ends up costing them a lot of time, money, and emotional turmoil.
Oh, by far. And even so with law, and take the simple will, for example. What a lot of people think when they're doing an estate plan is, hey, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. These are how I want the assets to go. But they don't really realize and think so much about there has to be somebody who distributes all this. There has to be somebody who can make all of this happen. And I talk about it all the time. A lot of times the parent comes in, they pick their oldest child who has 3 kids, 2 jobs, is married, has no time at all for it. And then it creates massive turmoil throughout the family because, the youngest brother wants all his money. The middle child is sitting here saying, what's taking so long? Let's get moving. Why aren't you doing this? And the oldest child is just sitting there like, I never signed up for this. This is terrible. And it's these little things that I find now that I do it all the time and I sit through probate that people just don't think about. I really think the estate planning, it's not really about death anymore. It's more about control. And even more so, the control of what happens. Like I say this all the time, death isn't the problem. It's incapacity. What happens to everything you've built up if you become incapacitated? And so people don't really plan for this. They're thinking, oh, I'm going to die and this is how I want it distributed. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is you're in a vegetative state and nobody can access your business because you didn't plan for it properly. And so this is where a lot of the transition I feel is happening is, hey, if I'm dead, I'm not going to worry about it. But if I wake up from that coma 5 years later and I see my business was shut down and sold for 30 cents to the dollar because nobody could get one of the banks to give them access to it and everybody quit, then I'm going to have a problem. Fortunately, you can plan for all this.
So how do you remain positive in a world where you're constantly looking at like the negative, like what could happen? Because that could be tough on anyone.
I'm a very pessimistic person now, Joshua.
That's a space like I don't want to be in. That's a place I don't want to be in. Like I want to focus on positives, but estate planning is a little dreary.
It can be. I'm a lot of fun at Thanksgiving dinner when I'm talking about, well, Matt, what do you have going on in your life? But I don't see it. I've never seen it as death. I've always seen it as sleeping better at night. And so here's a perfect example. I'm an estate planning attorney. I'm married. We have businesses. We have all this stuff we needed to do. And I put it off for a long time because me and my wife didn't want to have the conversation. It's not a fun conversation to have. Like, okay, if I die, this is what's going to happen. And this is where the money's going to go. And this is what you're going to have to do. She didn't want that conversation. She didn't want to think about it. But it's not about that. It's, I want you taken care of. This is what my plan is. Let's talk about it. And when you look at it from that angle, it gets away from the morbidity of it. And it's more, we're going to be okay if something happens to one of us. And then the moment it was done, I slept so great. I stopped worrying about it. I knew things were going to be taken care of. Now, of course, I'm terrified I'm going to die now because I've got my plan done. But that's the reality of what happens. It's not morbid unless you look at it morbid because you're helping the living is what you're doing with this. Yeah, unfortunately, someone has to die or somebody becomes incapacitated. Businesses are affected. Taxes have to be paid, things like that. But it's more along the lines that let me show you a better way of dealing with it than the morbidity side of it.
Yeah, every time I watch one of those wife murders the husband or something, they just updated their insurance policy or something like that. It's like the go-to one. Like they just bought $1 million insurance policy and then went boating in Bimini, Bahamas and just magically disappeared.
I watched those too, Josh. And here's what's funny. So this whole Reiner case, Rob Reiner was horribly murdered. It's allegedly the son who has done it. And the estate planning attorney who he had has, from my understanding, stepped away. Well, what the issue here is that pretty much all states, if you murder somebody and you're a beneficiary, you get nothing. And so that's the part about the whole case that I've really been interested in is you've just forfeited everything. And so that's what I tell my wife all the time too. Hey, if I go missing and they assume it's you get nothing. So
I don't know who it was, but they're like doing an interview. They're like, I am not suicidal. Like at the beginning of their interview, they're like, I am not suicidal. If anything happens after this interview, just for the record, letting everyone know, because those things
I've seen
do
a lot
happen,
of that
and
too.
people get crazy.
Oh, especially when money's involved. I had worked at one of the banks a long time ago as a wealth manager at the bank. And there was this client, and this was 15, 16 years ago. And back then, everybody went to the bank, especially the older generation. They would go in, they'd drink their coffee, they'd sit there, they'd talk to everybody. And you talk to that same client almost every day about little things about his account, like how's it doing? What do you think is going to happen in the market? And you just become close with him. And so this guy suddenly passes away, and he was fairly wealthy. Within a few days, I think it was a Friday, Thursday, Friday, he passed away. And so the next business day, his whole family showed up. They're fighting, they're arguing to get into the safety deposit box. And this big argument broke out in the lobby. And I sat there watching, like, this is terrible for this man. Like, he was so loved. And this is the last memory we're going to have of him here at the bank, is all this arguing and the family screaming and yelling back and forth. And I always thought to myself, as I was growing from that point, trying to build assets and things, like, if my family did that, I would disown every one of them. I wonder if I could put a clause in my will that says, if you embarrass my name at the bank, we're done. Nowadays, nobody really goes into the bank, so I guess I don't have to worry about it.
Did you have to put on some gloves? Did you have to wrangle some people in that fight a little bit?
No, I stayed out of it. I sipped my coffee and watched these people go at it and waited for the police to arrive. That has always stuck with me because it
the
was
police
such
had to come. That's always good.
Oh yeah. And from what I understood, it was a dragged out situation. I don't think he had a will, and so all of these people together fighting continuously until something got resolved. And I sit back and I'm like, no way. I'm not putting anybody through that.
Yeah, it's crazy. One of my good friends is an estate attorney down in Florida, and one of his clients is getting divorced, and he was helping him like pick the divorce attorney. He was talking to the divorce attorney, and he was like asking him like, he's like, well, first of all, this guy's a real jerk. And if you're going through divorce, you want a real jerk as your attorney. And secondly, he was like asking him, he's like, have you ever had to like, get physical with people? He goes, it's been a while, but like sometimes you got to get a little mean. And it's like crazy how the legal system works, because it's so, I think the legal system hasn't been updated in like hundreds of years, like the way it operates, the way it works. They'll go on Zoom now for things, but like the whole process, people think like, oh, you did something wrong to me, I'm going to take you to court and sue you. Okay, maybe small claims court, you'll win a few $1,000s. Unfortunately, if you have a lot of money and you don't do the right things and spend, call it 5-10 grand to set everything up correctly in the beginning, it's going to cost you a lot more money to go through probate. Like, how much does probate suck to go through?
Probate can run anywhere from, you'll see them 3,000 to way more than that, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. So let's say you have two parents and you're in Texas with no will. So mom dies and mom have assets that she wanted to go to the children. Well, because we're community property, half goes to dad and only half goes to the children. So let's say dad passes away shortly after. Well, to get that other half of money, now you have to do a second probate. You have to do 2 probates to get mom's original money that she had intended to go to children. And I see this all the time when the beneficiary designations aren't updated on IRA accounts and things like that. And it's little things like this where doing it yourself is definitely doable. I tell people all the time, I change my own brakes. I'm not paying that kind of money, but I also know how to change brakes. And I know the problems that can happen if I don't put the right screw in the right place. And so if you don't know what's happening, if you don't know the ins and outs of what takes place in probate, these are the type of situations that can happen all the time. And people they don't understand it. And so now instead of just having one probate, which could have been avoided with a beneficiary designation, you're having 2.
Yeah, I'm just looking here because we actually had a guest. I think he started like trustandwills.com. Yeah, so his name is Tim Hewson. He started legal, like online estate planning, legalwills.com or something like that. And I guess his argument is for like a lot of people who don't have a lot, like doing something online could make sense. But at what point does it not make sense?
I completely agree. I think it doesn't make sense when it starts getting complicated. When you have multiple businesses, when you have lots of things that you want to bequest. And so a will is a public document. And I always mentioning, be careful what you put in the will, because when you die, you hire somebody to go do the probate. They're taking that will and turning it into the county clerk. And so I talk all the time, don't give large gifts in your will. Put them into a trust and distribute it that way. Don't defame people in your will. And we see it all the time. Like, my deadbeat son, he's worthless. He gets absolutely nothing. Well, guess what? Your deadbeat son is now going to sue the estate because you defamed him and you thought he was getting nothing, but he may end up with something after all. And so there's little things, I think, the more complex it gets, it's better to go the route where, hey, these are people that do it. For example, my wife's a civil engineer. She brings home maps of the city where that she's working on certain things. And I'll sit there and I'll stare at that map. I have no idea what I'm looking at, Josh. No idea. But it looks.
You're like, oh, this is a pretty picture. Frame it.
Oh, a new painting. Yeah, let's put it in my office. And that's the situation that we find with a lot of estate planning is if it's a simple will where, hey, it's very simple. I'll go on to the spouse and them to the children. A lot of that, I'll even say, hey, look, just create one online, follow the tactics. But when you have children involved, when you have trust involved, when you have the businesses involved, the estate plan is just a piece of it. For example, when we do asset protection, we're moving assets out of people's names. We're moving them into entities so that if they are sued, you're not having issues. Well, you need a solid estate plan for this because you don't want to own these LLCs in your name. You want the trust to own them. And so as you start building out horizontally, you need to make sure, hey, I've got this solid state frame that is going to be able to hold everything together. And then at that point, you're bringing in tax as well, tax strategies, tax planning. And so it all kind of flows together. If it's just, hey, I need a will, I'm giving everything to my spouse, sometimes that works. But when you start talking about, and my dogs, they need to be taken care of, and my cousin, I'm going to give him this huge gift. These are the things that you want to start planning a little bit differently for.
I've seen like on social media, like there's an attorney that's like talks about this trust. And it's like these small islands that are like 7,000 miles away or something. It's like, he's like, I have this trust. I forget the name of it, but he's like, this place is 7,000 miles away. And if you want to protect your assets, well, they'll have to go there in order to fight it or something like that. I was like, that sounds like crazy. Why would anyone want to do that? And unless you have like, I don't know why anyone would want to do that. I'm not sure. Or if it's just like one of those ploys that gets people's attention.
It is part of that, like the Bahamas or the Nevis Trust that you'll see the offshore. And these used to be back in the 80s and 90s. And you can refer to the Wolf of Wall Street. They used to do in Switzerland. They would open up. I
think Scarface.
Scarface probably did it too. And they would open up these trusts.
Yeah, there's a lot of banks in Miami.
Yeah, there are. And the problem with Switzerland now is that because it's part of the EU, they can easily get access to it, but they can't get it so easily through Nevis and Bahamas and some of these other places. And so what you're seeing is people who are really concerned, they'll create a trust in these offshore type places because the U.S. can't just come in and say, turn it over. They're going to have to go through a separate court through that country's system in order to get something to happen. And so why they do it, I see it more often for asset protection. It's not really hiding things, but hey, I have a lot of assets. I don't want somebody to be able to pierce the corporate veil of my company and come through and get these assets through me. So I'm going to add even an extra layer. And that's what a lot of the asset protection really is, hey, I'm not hiding things. It's all in the open, but it's no longer me. I'm no longer in control of it. So even if you do get through this company, you say, Mr. Meredith, you went to Hawaii 4 times on your company's dole and you didn't do any work. We're piercing the veil here. You're going to have to be sued individually. There's still this other thing that says, oh, hang on, not so easy. And you can do that here in the States as well. There's all kind of different structures that you create. You add holding companies that hold your LLCs and things like that. And it all just provides that extra layer of protection because you said it just a few minutes ago. We live in an extremely litigious environment. People sue as part of a business here. That's what it is. If I can get money out of you, I'm going to do it. In other countries, you don't see that much. I spent a lot of time in Mexico, and Mexico doesn't sue people like that. I talk about seeing this guy hit by a car before, and they just kind of walked away with each other. And to me, that blew my mind because, man, that would be a lawsuit. No, they just brushed the guy off and he walked away. And so it's interesting, the society we live in, and I don't think it's getting better. And so we have to protect ourselves. We have to protect these assets, these brokerage accounts and things like that, because people will come after them because it's a business model for them to do it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, once the tariffs hit, I think did Apple like send like a bunch of jets to pick up all the iPhones and like move them from like China to somewhere else? I'm pretty sure.
I remember hearing about that. They shipped a whole bunch of parts to avoid the tariffs.
Mm-hmm. They're like, we're getting them out and we're moving them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the same thing with any business. I mean, if the landscape becomes unfavorable, you have to change your game plan. Most folks aren't at that level. But I mean, even doing some little things, like what are some little things anyone could do that could help save them money or help protect them, even if they don't have like billions or millions of dollars? Because I mean, the little things add up to big things over time. It's just most people think that they don't matter because what's saving $1 here? Or, you know, if you're able to mow your own lawn or change your own brakes, like it adds up. $20 a day is more than $7,000 a year.
Exactly. And so a lot of the things we see is do the right structure. If you're going to build an LLC or you're going to build an entity, do it right. Get the operating agreement, set up possibly a holding company, which adds another level above that. Keep your assets and from your business and your person separate. Don't commingle because that's how they can come in and get them. Another thing that I talk about often is brokerage accounts. We see it from time to time. Have you ever had a client get a judgment against them and they come after their brokerage accounts?
Not yet.
Okay.
I have had people not follow instructions and then the IRS ends up withholding like 25 or 30% of money that when they sell because they didn't fill out a form that you asked them to like 4 or 5 times. But not a judgment, not a judgment. Just IRS taking money that they'll probably get back.
Definitely. Well, and being the financial side, there's 2 thoughts that come into mind here. Is my client just lost a ton of money to a judgment, but I also basically lost the client. And so it's also our business as advisors that get hit. And so little things like this, I preach all the time, protect yourself in these manners, get them out of your name, so that if something does happen, they're protected. People can't come back and get them. That's a huge one right there. Another thing that really comes into play when we're combining business with the estate plan is making sure your business will carry on if something happens to you. And we talked about death and we talked about incapacity. A lot of people will create an LLC and they'll own it in their own name. Well, if something happens, you probably haven't done it as much as I have, but when somebody dies and I'm representing the business, I go to the bank and I say, hey, we're the new owners. And they're like, go get us a court order because we're not giving you anything without a court order. Mm-hmm. So if this is an ongoing business, guess what? I don't have access to that bank account. So I can't pay people. I can't continue the business on. And what happens is that business just sits there until I go through probate, get letters, and then go back to the bank. And then it can still be a battle with the bank over, look, we're the new owners. Here's what's happening. Well, we're going to need to see this, and this. And so it's these little things that when you take them all in this holistic view, we're always talking holistic view, you have to make sure that one part works with the other, which works with the other. And when you combine them all together, it really starts taking the pressure and the stress off of, hey, what happens if something happens to me? Will my wife carry on? Will my business carry on? Will my children be safe?
Is it illegal to gain online access? Because, I mean, now you could just gain online access. You have all the passwords. I mean, how would the bank ever know, right?
I'm not going to get into that one on air with you. but typically, I think that could possibly fall under fraud. And there were a few cases about
what if you're a power of attorney? Like a power of attorney could do that? Or is that like pushing the envelope a little bit?
So a power of attorney, typically in these situations, you have to alert the other side, hey, I'm the power of attorney. They have to basically say, okay, you're proven. And so on the broker side, we normally we'll receive the power of attorney and we have to go register it with our firm. The bank's kind of the same way. You get this power of attorney. And so what you'll see a lot of times, people walk in and like, I'm the power of attorney, give me this. And it's like, well, hang on. We're going to have to verify this. We're going to have to do these things. The problem with the power of attorney, let's talk about in death. Upon death, that power of attorney is worthless. So now you need letters. You need either letters of testamentary, letters of administration, which are typically issued from the court. And so if you don't have those and you're acting on behalf of somebody who is dead at this point, well, now you've created a serious fraud issue that we want to avoid. In life, if you have the medical powers and the financial powers, that's fine. And that's why we use a durable these days, a durable power of attorney, because it carries on through incapacity. And so if something were to happen to me, my wife could walk in and say, hey, I'm the durable power of attorney for him. I need to get set up. He's incapacitated, and the process begins. But all of this is one of the reasons why people use trust now, is that there's no need for a power of attorney. The trust owns it. The trustees manage it. So if I'm co-trustee with my spouse, or I have a successor trustee, they just step up in that role and carry it out. And so you avoid a lot of the problems. But again, once there's, death, you can't really just jump in and say, oh, I'm online, everything's fine. That could turn out pretty bad.
I'm online, everything's fine. Sounds like I'm watching a TikTok or something. A good legal
don't ask,
talk.
don't tell. It's one of those dark ones that we try to avoid even thinking about happening. I would kind of just say that as the atmosphere in investing changes, the atmosphere in law changes, that where the industry is going, it's going to be interesting. Are people going to continue to pay these type of fees to people to manage money and stuff like that? And I think that a lot of it comes down, and I tell people all the time, always be adding to what you can do for the client. And that's kind of, as we mentioned, the unfair advantage. You're seeing it a lot more as people are coming up. They keep adding these different licenses, certifications so that they can do more. Because I really feel that that'll be the future, is how can we provide as much as we can in that, what was it? Rockefeller, horizontal expansion, to provide the better services for the people. And then let's hope to God there's not a massive market blowout and we're all looking for jobs.
I feel like people are always going to want to talk to a person, even when you have access to language learning models and things like that. I use language learning models every day, but if someone else attempts to find out what a language learning model will tell them, they don't have the background or know what to ask, they're going to get a much different answer compared to what I'm going to get or what you're going to get, being that you have a legal background, because you have to know how to speak the language, because law is its own language, finance is its own language, accounting is its own language. That's why everyone's like, avoid jargon or work talk, because people are talking in work terms. I'm like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, man.
Completely respect that. And that's the thing with AI, is a lot of people are concerned. Hey, we're the only people going to be left are the refrigerator repairmans and the electricians and the plumbers. And there's a truth to that, but there's a much different conversation that I have on ChatGPT about law than somebody who doesn't, because I've been around it. I do know the jargon for what I'm specifically asking about. I do know things that, hey, let's talk about this. How can we add this and bring it in and make it more complex and safer in its manner? And so you've got two sides. AI is terrible. It's going to ruin us all. And then AI is this phenomenal tool. I think AI is a phenomenal tool. But again, kind of like what you're saying, you have to understand the parameters for what you're doing, because if you don't, it's just going to flop out something very basic for you. And it's not enough. I see people all the time with contracts. Oh, I created this contract and I want you to sign it. And I look through and I'm like, I'm going to create you a new contract for free because this is terrible. You're going to lose your business. And that's the thing. People, it's so easy to do things and learn things on our own that we think, hey, we don't need the professionals to come in and do it. But you as a money manager and somebody, you know so many more things that the basic person knows. Me doing law for as long as I have, I understand things that people don't. And so it's important to realize, get that understanding, but don't be afraid to ask professionals to step in and help out.
Yeah, I mean, I've lost not tons of clients, but I've lost clients and I accept it. And I kind of love when I do because it's just like, all right, you're doing me a favor. And most of the time, I see the same thing. They invest money one time, one point at a time, and then you never hear from them ever again. They're like, you can't get a hold of them. They won't answer an email. They won't answer a call. And it's just like, what can you do? And then they're like, oh, all financial people are terrible. I'm just going to go do it this way. Oh, investing doesn't work. Now I'm just not going to ever invest ever again. And that's like the route people go when they have that negative mindset. You're in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Do you know, like, if I said Dusty Rhodes, would you know that name?
I know the name, but I couldn't tell you why I know the name.
So he was like a wrestler from Austin, like back
That's
in the
it.
day.
Dusty Rhodes.
And
Okay.
Yeah, Dusty Rhodes. Now there's Cody Rhodes. And he did a promo. He was like, computers taking your jobs, like in the 80s. You work for 30 years, you get a watch, and then you learn a computer took your job. It's the same thing. But like now the way you could look at it is like you have access to all these free tools. You can literally like build anything you want with a little bit of work. Like I built a whole like game using code. And I mean, I took one programming class and that probably would have cost me like 10 grand. And I did it for free in like a week.
Oh, wow.
So like, it's all about like using the tools and figuring out how to use them to your advantage rather than just like, this AI has taken my job. Now what do I do? It's like, well, why don't you use the AI and make yourself smarter? Just like the computer. Yeah, like, I mean, we're here on a computer. I literally can work from anywhere. And I mean, that's when the PC came out. Like one of the missions of like Microsoft was to allow anyone to be able to get into business for themselves, which was like a really cool mission. Now they're like a huge conglomerate, but like they wanted to level the playing field. And now anyone can go into business. But I mean, how many people have you met back in the day or currently? And they're like, yeah, man, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then you run into them 10 years later, like, nope, still same job.
That happens for wills too. Hey, did you get your will done? Oh yeah, I'm going to get it 10 years later. Nope. So I see that too. And that's the thing with it. And every time I hear somebody say they're going to take our jobs, I go to South Park. They took our jobs. And I sit there and I laugh because that may happen. And so in the meantime, I'll just keep adding things. And if they take this job, well, then I'll become this tax specialist. And if they take that job, I'll jump into something else and just continuously moving. But it's here to stay. And it's revolutionizing everything that's being done because just like you said, it's this free information that's flowing. Some of the times it can be off, it can be wrong in make-up cases. And that, what do they say it does? It hallucinates.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better though. I mean, that was in the beginning. I mean, it's getting better every second of every day. So it's avoiding those mirages or hallucinations or you could call them a trip of some sort.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick with it until I get my house butler robot that cleans my house and cooks for me. That's what we were promised in the 80s. That's what I'm sticking around at least till. After that, I may say, nope, it's too smart. It's gonna take over and kill me. But for now, I'll go for the house butler robot.
Well, you got Roombas. I mean, that's basically a robot.
That is true,
right? See, I mean, people are like, AI is coming. It's like, well, you have your Roombas. I mean, AI is everywhere if you just look at it. I mean, it's hidden in different things. Did you see like Tesla stopped production on 2 car models and now they're going like full robots or something?
I was seeing that. Yeah, he's convinced. Elon really wants the robots to come out, and they're pushing, I think, later this year the brain chip as well.
Oh, for Neuralink,
something like that. And I don't know if you've ever watched Severance on Apple TV. I got my free 7-day trial of Severance because I wanted to watch Pluribus, and so then of Apple because I wanted to watch Pluribus, and Severance was another one I had seen a commercial for, so I watched it. And the whole premise is they put a chip in your head, and when you go into a work situation, you're just that person. And so you know nothing about your outside life, and your outside life knows nothing about your work life. And let me tell you, the premise of the show is it all goes to hell. So that's one thing. So I'll be avoiding any brain chip coming out. But even the media is now talking about it. You're seeing it everywhere. Like, what's the future of humanity? We'll find out soon enough, I guess.
I don't know. We'll find out when that happens. But right now we can just focus on the now.
Very true.
Well, sweet. So happy to have you on, Matt. Thanks to everyone. We'll see everyone next time. Bye.